Hi, this is Gloria Taylor Brown with the Gathering of Priestesses, and we have with us today some of the priestesses and speakers at the West Coast Ecofeminism event in Orange County that Julia Orr has arranged and organized. We really appreciate her letting us come here and do some interviews. We're at the Goddess Temple in Orange County, which we'll show you a little bit later. It's absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, we've got altars behind us to Isis, so we are totally surrounded in Egyptian love here. Anyway, we have with us today, and your name again, say it please?
Alka Arora.
Alka Arora. It's a really unusual name. Where does that come from?
It's actually not a very unusual name at all. If you Google it, you'll find lots and lots of people with my name. The name is from India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
And are you from India?
My family is, yes.
Your family is?
Yes.
All right. So you're going to be doing a talk on waking up to speciesism.
Speciesism, yes.
Yes, okay. Well, I'm Southerner. We can barely speak on a regular basis, so you're going to have to excuse me. So tell us what that means.
So I titled my talk Waking Up to Speciesism because it's sort of a play on words. There's 2 points that I want to make about it. One is that we literally wake up to speciesism every day.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about, if you wake up in the morning, if you have a down comforter on top of you, there were real live animals whose bodies were plucked to get that down into your comforter. If you eat any meat in your breakfast or cream in your coffee, that came from animal sources. The shoes that you put on in the morning might be leather, maybe from animal sources. So every day we're literally waking up in the context of a society that is based on the domination and abuse of non-human animals. And the other way in which we wake up to speciesism is if we, in modern industrialized cities and societies, we barely see any species other than humans except for, our cats and dogs and, pigeons occasionally. But we've wiped out most other species from our immediate environments. So those are some of the ways that we literally wake up to speciesism. And then, of course, the other meaning of waking up to speciesism is more metaphorical. What I'm arguing is that we need to wake up and recognize how inculcated we are into this system of domination, of dominating other species, and wake up and realize how it's connected to the domination of humans.
And I think there's also the idea that has long been part of anthropology is that the humans are at the top of the chain because we use tools and we have language. And now that's basically been totally disproven. I mean, they've showed that ravens use tools, and it's obvious that different types of animals have language. I mean, the dolphin language is far more sophisticated than our language. So, in a way, the whole basis that said we are at the top of the chain is, proved to be a fallacy.
Well, this whole idea that there has to be a hierarchy, right, I think is part of dominator culture.
Right.
And is part of the whole patriarchal ideology of, we are at that, quote, the top, as opposed to a part of. And certainly there's things about human animals, I think, that are distinctive, that are unique, and are wonderful, but that doesn't mean that other species of animals don't have their own beauty and their own uniqueness, and their own right to be free from harm.
Right. So, as we wake up to speciesism, as we realize that they are other living living beings that have a right to exist on this planet, what do we do with that?
Well, there's a lot that we can do. I mean, I think that, there's so many different ways in which that we abuse non-human animals, from medical research to zoos to circuses, all of these things. But I think that the one way in which most everybody is implicated on a daily basis is in our food choices. In the consumption of meat and dairy and eggs. And I think that there's a lot that we can do on an individual level to really look at where our food is coming from and the beings who've suffered in order that we can please our palates. So I think there's things that we can do on that individual level, but I think that we need to move beyond just an individual choice too, and look at this as a collective and as a systemic issue. right? So that means speaking up in our political movements as we talk about, liberation for women and anti-racism and heterosexism and homophobia, that we also talk about speciesism, right? And anti-speciesism. And so we talk about veganism not just as a personal lifestyle choice, which is often what I hear. When people say that I'm vegan, oh, you can't eat such and such. No, I could. I choose not to because it's a political and ethical decision. It's not like being gluten intolerant.
Right.
Which is just a personal sort of...
Personal choice, yes. Yeah, well, I was thinking about it, the white, male, European dominant program that is what is sort of spread almost globally is based on the theory that we have to eat animal flesh.
Yes.
We have to eat, that we can't survive without these. And possibly it comes from a time whenever that was true, but it's not anymore. But at the same time, the continent that your parents come from, India, has a very large population that has existed for a very long time, probably longer than the European population, without eating meat, without eating food created by killing something. And so, the point being that each and every one of us, as you say, makes that choice every minute, whatever we're going to do. Corn dogs deserve to live too. Actually, corn dogs are really bad things. Don't eat them. Even if they're tofu corn dogs.
Very processed, yes. Yeah.
So, as we're making these choices, can you give us a couple of 3 simple steps that our viewers would be able to put in place for their lives?
I would say the first step, before even making any change, is to keep doing what you're doing, but bring some more awareness to what you're doing. Slow down. With each bite that you take or each meal that you order, take a moment to think about where that food came from, right? So it's not just the animal body that may have been slaughtered for your food, but think about all the workers the whole chain of what happened to bring that food to your table, And I think once we start to slow down and pay attention, then we're more likely to go inward and say, this doesn't necessarily feel good, right? To be participating in something that's harmful, right? But then the other thing that I would say is, a lot of people have withdrawal symptoms when they give up meat or dairy, if they've been heavy eaters, because, I think physiologically we get addicted to whatever we're used to having, and so they think, oh, well, since I'm having withdrawal, that means that I must need meat, right? Just as if you're having withdrawal from alcohol or cigarettes, you're going to feel like, well, I need that, but it doesn't mean it's actually healthy for you, So I think a lot of people, particularly in this culture where animal products have become so part of every single meal, that they've become sort of dependent upon it, so need some support, whether that's talking to a healthcare practitioner who can support them in knowing how to do it in a healthful way to minimize withdrawal symptoms, whether it's having community support. So I think there's a lot of things that people can do on that level. And then the third thing that I would say is educate yourself. Look at the intersections between, the oppression of women and the oppression of non-human animals, the oppression of people of color and the oppression of non-human animals, what we're doing to our environment, our ecological devastation that's caused by our food choices. I think those are very important. And then, for those who are able to, I think getting politically involved and educating others. And also in looking at issues of access, right? So for instance, there's for many people in low-income urban communities, there isn't much access to fresh, wholesome food. And what you get at what's around you is fast food restaurants that we have cheap food that's based on animal products, right? So not everyone has the same level of access to healthy vegan or vegetarian foods. And so I think that we all have a responsibility to be involved in efforts to increase that access.
That's great. So if someone, do you do health counseling? Is that what you do?
I don't. No, I'm a feminist scholar, and
Oh,
so
okay.
I teach in a program called Women's Spirituality at the California Institute of Integral Studies.
Oh, I love that school. Great school.
I love it, and so, you know, my academic training has been in feminist thought and in women's studies and in women in religion and spirituality. And being a vegetarian was something that I sort of grew up with partially culturally, although my family did eat meat for a while, but partially because as a teenager I became privy to animal rights literature and became to see all the cruelty that's happening to animals. And so I never actually, it wasn't until later in life that I was a feminist and I was a vegetarian, but I didn't really see how they intersected exactly until later, until I started doing more research. And then a couple of years ago, I went from being vegetarian to vegan.
Well, fabulous.
Yeah.
I really have enjoyed speaking with you. And do you have a book or anything where people can get more information on this?
Yeah, I would really recommend that people check out our website of the California Institute of Integral Studies Women's Spirituality Program. That's www.cis.edu/WSE. And when I have my first book out, which I don't have yet, I look forward to sharing it with you.
Oh, well, that sounds fabulous. Thank you so much for talking with us today. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate the work you're doing. And we appreciate the thought that you are holding for the future of mankind.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.